Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, Airplane 2. Yeah, you might think you're at the wrong show, but remember, Shatner, big part of this. This was when he was making his comeback. Sure, he was doing TJ Hooker, but he did Con and Airplane 2 same year. Here we're talking about Airplane 2 on It's All Been Checked Before. Speaking of which, we got some of the bonus episodes. This is the end of the feed for right now with the special episodes. You want more special episodes? Patreon.com/IABD. Very minimal donation. Get in there. The numbers are growing. They're fierce. They're legion. Patreon.com/IABD. And right now, listen to us talking about Airplane 2 on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. This is one of our between season specials, but we have your regular people here.
This is Stephen.
And this is Keith, between Jimmy and Stephen.
And this is a very special Jimmy-Jerome. I
felt like I thought I had something. I really just didn't. I just had to trail off on that one.
We're here to talk Airplane 2. We did not review Airplane 1 on this podcast, but I feel like we should do a little previously on, like, what did we think of Airplane 1? Did you guys both rewatch Airplane 1 this week?
Yeah.
I didn't this week, but I saw it a couple weeks ago. Colleen pulled it up on like a Sunday, and I was like, okay. All right. Well, I'm not doing anything for the next hour and a half because I love that movie. I saw it in the theater. It's another one I saw in the theater when it came out when I was 12 or whatever, and it was the first time I remember laughing out loud, like guffawing in an actual theater, and I was blown away. I was like, this is the funniest movie ever. It's still one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I think
I bet you didn't even get half the jokes when you were 12.
No, there are a lot of jokes I didn't get. There are a lot of jokes that had to do with references that I didn't get at 12. As advanced as I thought I was.
There was, a couple of us felt like I wasn't sure if there were references to maybe Airport 77 or something like that. I don't know if they were making fun of that movie, which I hadn't seen. Or still haven't, I don't think.
Yeah, their jump off was like the original Airport movie. Mm-hmm. And then this movie called 0 Hour. And actually Scott Sickles, who wrote a play that Keith was in that I directed last year, Theater Roulette at Mad Lab, he said you should watch 0 Hour and then watch Airplane, and it'll blow your mind. But they stuck really close to the plot of that. And I've never seen that. But then they borrow those aspects from Airport. And there are some Airport 77, Airport 78, Airport 79 elements in there, and a lot of
there were more. I had realized. So, what, they had like 4 airports?
I think there were 4 or 5.
That's crazy.
I'm hearing all of this for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I just happened to notice. I remember like seeing posters for like one of them, like 77 or whatever, and I didn't realize there was like
70, 75, 77, and 79, and then obviously Airplane 2 took a sci-fi angle, but
I think one of the things I knew, one of the things I wasn't sure about was the coffee references. I don't know if I can't remember if that was like a commercial they were taking off of or something like that.
Yeah,
he doesn't like my coffee at home at the thought balloon.
I can't remember which brand or whatever, but it was definitely Bob never has a second cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So switch to Folgers or Taster's Choice or whatever it was.
The first movie is just downright hilarious. I completely agree. And I didn't even know the airport movies existed. So just on its own, it's punny in just the right way. It reminds me enough of the Mel Brooks style of humor I enjoy so well. The second one to me feels like they tried to copy the first one, which I guess they did because the creators didn't return. So the newbies were just like, sure, let us do the same thing.
Yeah, so it's a lot of, at one point it literally starts to turn into a clip show, but it's clip show. There's some callbacks. There's also, we're just going to do the same thing we did the first time. And some of that I think is actually part of the joke is that.
Yeah, I agree.
This is what sequels do. We're doing exactly what a sequel does, which is, or at least a lot of sequels did then, which is we're going to give you what you saw in the first one. We're just going to do it again, which a lot of sequels do now too. But this is this is post Empire Strikes Back. So the sequel being better than the original and not being as derivative was kind of a new thing. We'll get into this deeper later, but Wrath of Khan came out this year too. Speaking of great sequels that superseded the original and didn't just copy it. But
I enjoyed Airplane 2, and I mean, I don't mind that it copied, but I do think it's a lesser sequel than the original.
It is, and it was really overlooked at the time for that reason. Like, it was just looked at as a retread, and I think underrated. I think it still delivers a lot of the same kind of laughs. I mean, solidly as that one. But there are parts where you're like, ooh, I can feel them working really hard to try and get that same magic and feel, and it's just not quite there.
It's the lack of Leslie Nielsen.
Well, yeah. That could be part of it, because they really did. They came back, whatever, I guess 7 years later with Police Squad.
He declined this movie in order to do Naked Gun or something. I thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know
the original creators of the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't remember when. I don't think I ever really saw Police Squad. I mean, that was a TV series, right?
Yeah, and actually, one of the guys in Airplane 2 was in that. But yeah, it was it was at the time ABC canceled after like 8 episodes, and they essentially said it was too smart for the American audience to follow, which is insane because all the jokes are just stupid. I mean, they're smart, but they're stupid, just like Airplane and just like Airplane 2. A lot of stuff,
and just like Naked Gun, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I love it. I love throwing out 100 jokes, and if 70 of them land, great, and if 30 of them are just for me, that's cool too.
I've mixed feelings about a lot of it, honestly. It's just like, and I'm pretty sure I never actually got to just sit down and watch the whole thing uncensored all the way through either. There's probably been either, it was on TV or just people make so many references to it, it's hard not to remember whether you actually saw it or not. No, but I know I'd seen parts of it. Anyway, there's something about the 80s style of that sort of thing that a few things get a little dated for me. Like some of the racial bits are like,
and some of the sexist bits.
That too.
Yep.
Oddly enough, it would seem to be heavier in the sequel, if I recall, as far as like some of the sexist bits.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, yeah, sir. Like I like breasts. I'm a guy. I like that sort of thing.
What?
But, yeah, that's a great way to lead into this comment. But sometimes you have. If something gets a little bit too gratuitous, it kind of takes me out of the moment, I guess, anymore. Like back then, they threw breasts as a punchline.
I don't think Airplane has breasts that aren't punchlines.
Yeah.
Either one of them.
That's fair. And the first one, I remember that moment just seared in my memory banks of like, I know exactly when this part of the movie is. I know exactly what that girl looks like. I was 12. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Not that I hadn't seen breasts before. I had seen Playboy magazine, but still like, oh, this is amazing. And then I forgot that they were in this movie until I was watching it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, they do that bit. And then I was surprised. I was surprised to get to the gratuitous or whatever that I thought it was just the one girl, but then there's 2 more that come through the security gate and get X-rayed.
I was like, all right, well, all right.
They foresaw Homeland Security actually being extra doing that in the future. So,
but you notice the men, they didn't show the same. If they wanted to be
exactly. It was like, that's not important. That's not important.
This movie made today would have showed a man's junk as well, just to even things out.
Well, the more amazing thing is
progress.
Is I counted there are 8 breasts, breasts shown in this movie. I counted like I was 12, and it was PG rated.
So, I think was this before PG-13?
This is like a year before, or 2 years before Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. So yeah, that's
insane. I would have thought that would have at least been R or something.
Yeah. I mean PG, parental guidance, but yeah.
I guess it wasn't really language or much really.
I think I saw this one in the theater too, but it felt like the original had its moments, but
for the good parts, all right. I just kind of jumped right to the trashing bits of this didn't age well, but I mean there are certain classic things that they did which just were brilliant to me. The actual the pacing of the wordplay for some of the things, or like I don't know how it got me every time. I wasn't. They were so quick with it every time when they did the "what is it" joke.
That's not important right now.
Yes, exactly. It's just like I can't. How did you catch me with that? Because they do it so quick, you don't have time to process. They're about to do it, and
I like that they saved it till about halfway through the second movie, so you're starting to wonder if you've forgotten that's a thing, and then it pops back in. I like the beginning. I thought the music was more Star Trek-y, but of course they did the scroll of Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, do you guys know what that music is?
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, the original Battlestar Galactica.
I was so familiar. I actually had to see that in the credits. I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, so
I knew it was something and I couldn't place it.
Obviously, I watched the original Battlestar Galactica as a kid. And then I even watched Galactica 1980.
Huh.
So, like Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, it got canceled because it was too expensive. Its ratings weren't terrible, but they weren't good enough to justify it. So then they were like, well, there was a letter writing campaign, another connection to Star Trek. So they came back to this Galactica 1980, and it lasted like 10 episodes. I watched all those too. And the star of Galactica 1980, or one of the stars, there it is. On the right there, Kent McCord, who is in this movie as one of the co-pilots. So, a lot about Galactica.
Unger.
Mm-hmm.
And that bit was so solid for me. Just the over Unger and done. I didn't realize that they were saying Unger with the G until I saw the credits too. But I mean, still.
Well, they did the same thing in the first movie with two different co-pilots.
Over and Roger Murdoch and
Roger and what was the other one?
Who was Murdoch?
Clarence.
Clarence.
Yeah. Was it? Oh.
What disappointed me about the beginning of this movie was they talked about at the close of the 20th century, the lunar colonies. And I'm like, wait, have we had lunar colonies for 25 years? I haven't got to visit them yet. I was very disappointed because I think we should have lunar colonies now. And clearly they've actually given the moon atmosphere based on later in the movie when people are just running around on the surface with no spacesuits. I did really appreciate the airplane launched, or the spaceship airplane, whatever, launched from Houston. At least they're consistent with where the Space Force is.
Yeah. That's
of course 2 years after the first shuttle launched. So it looked like the actual shuttle and everything. So that was cool.
I would say, I mean, just even though it is supposed to be conspicuously like a retread, even I think, I agree with something Stephen was saying earlier about it being part of the joke, that they're leading into that heavily, that they're doing this. I thought it was interesting that they bothered to leap. I hadn't recalled at all that it happened in space. I knew aspects like the trial. I think I'd seen like scenes like that, but as far as it actually taking place in space, I didn't realize they were doing that, and I thought that was an ambitious leap forward if they're going to try to do something like that.
There's the one line where the person says, I think like they're in 2-hour parking or something. They're like, that's okay. I have 2-hour parking going into space.
I liked that they had the shot of the original Enterprise from the 1960s Star Trek.
Later. Yeah. That was
clearly they got all their permissions in line.
Well, it was Paramount Pictures that made it, so they had it all. So
well, it's hard to miss. It was Paramount when you get the post-credit scene with Airplane 3 and then Shatner saying, that's exactly what they're expecting us to do. Which apparently, I did read up on that. At the time that movie came out, Paramount wanted to push forward with a third one. And the lead actor guy, the main guy, didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And there were several things, and then the movie didn't end up making very much money.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
So they killed it, but they went ahead and thought, well, we have Shatner saying that line, we can leave that post-credit scene in.
That is funny.
Although I do wonder what the third one would have been, since they already did space. Would they be like going under the sea or something?
That's a good question. And like I said, that was the thing with the original airports, was like the first one was the first one. The 75 one, I think the plane blows. Oh, no. Yeah, the second one, I think the cockpit gets terrorist at it and the stewardess lands it. And then 79 was the Concorde, which is really just a promotional film for that, more or less, and made it more international. But
what do you mean a promotional film for the Concorde itself?
It was like the Concorde is a pretty new thing then. And then, I was going to say not much later it was gone, but it's probably 20 years later, I think.
Just like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was sponsored by the candy company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was basically a candy commercial.
You mean the more recent one, or
no? The original with Gene Wilder.
Huh. Well,
I mean, it's the best commercial I've ever seen, but
so it makes sense.
And for a long time, the Wonka Candy Company really didn't do anything, so the movie was more successful than they were.
Huh. Can we go back to the post-credit scene for a second? I'm trying to place are they referencing something that Kirk said in one of the movies, or are they trying to.
I don't think so. I think they just thought it would be funny to, of course they're expecting a third film.
Yeah, because does he say it in this movie?
No.
Okay, that is a line that I think either Stack or Bridges says in the original.
I think so too, and I'm trying to. I can't remember exactly what was going on at the time, and
I missed
driving me nuts.
Around the time he's coming in, and they're like, "Shouldn't we do this?" That's just what they'd expect us to do.
Yeah. Turning on the spotlights or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, right.
So maybe it was a deleted line from the movie itself.
Yeah.
Which would make sense.
And you guys mentioned Leslie Nielsen not being in here, and obviously Robert Stack's not here, and I'm trying to think some of the other big guys that didn't come back, or the more serious guys that didn't come back. Mm-hmm. So they kind of substituted with I guess for lack of a better term, the B team. Chuck Connors, who was the rifleman, and was a action actor. I have Rip Torn, although Rip Torn was more of just a serious actor who just showed up in this. Kent McCord, I already mentioned, who was also on Adam 12 in the 60s. And then Chad Everett, who was on a show called Medical Center, which essentially was ER before ER in the 70s. And then, of course, our guy, Bill Shatner, who I think...
Bill Shatner a big get for them here, or was more of a joke? Yeah,
it was more of a joke. I mean, it was more like, oh, he's that guy. And then, like I said, this is the same year as Khan. All of a sudden, this is an amazing year for Shatner. And this is around the time he started leaning into that, screw it, I am Kirk. I am this guy. I am Kirk, and I'm also this jerk, William Shatner, this rep I have. And
he had maybe the best joke in the movie, where it looked like you were talking on the screen and then the door opened.
Oh, man. Sorry. Yeah.
I love his line when he says, why the hell doesn't anyone tell me anything? I've said that since 1982. Whenever somebody tells me something that they should have told me before. It's like,
I mean, Shatner's the reason we watched this movie. And I thought there was a reference to his Twilight Zone episode earlier when the main guy sees the two co-pilots in space. And
that could be.
Like, look out the window, and then the woman looks and there's nothing there. I assume that was a play on Shatner's role.
It certainly could have been.
Our other special episode we're doing here between seasons.
Oh, that's right.
Let's talk about it very soon.
That's right.
I don't know if that'll be on Patreon or not. We'll see.
Is that the one where the two co-pilots get sucked out into space? Yeah. It also reminded me of 2001 a little bit.
Oh, they definitely did the 2001 with Hal. Only it was. Yeah.
Oh, there was a lot of 2001. Yeah.
Wait, I can't do that.
Wait, what do you mean the one where the people get sucked out into space?
So the two co-pilots get sucked out into space, and then dancing essentially.
Oh, you're asking. Okay, I see.
Yeah, which
I was confused about why you were asking that.
To refer back to the Scott Sickles play I referenced earlier, that's how that show ends. Spoiler alert.
But in general, I thought Shatner did fantastic in this film.
Yes,
I felt like the movie feels like it's done, and then Shatner shows up, and you're like, okay. I mean, I think he brings the movie home. Otherwise, I don't know what other ending they do. You bring in Shatner, and he just gets amped up.
Yeah,
I think the movie was definitely feeling very much like a retread of the first. And again, we talked about that was purposeful. Yeah. But when Shatner comes on, it gives it a new energy and it takes it in a new place.
It does.
So it does kind of perk it up here in that third act when things are starting to lag.
Like I said, it's him leaning into that personality and also showing he's a pretty funny guy.
Oh, very.
I was going to mention again that I was watching on Amazon for a couple of reasons. One, I think they gave him first billing. You know how they give you that little synopsis of like blah blah blah. So they actually had Shatner, then Hayes and Haggerty in it.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. I was like, I was expecting to have a more major role than the third act. The other thing is the courtroom scene. For some reason, I remembered seeing the older white woman come back as the jive translator for the courtroom scene too. But that wasn't there when I was watching this version. I don't know if I was like conflating it with the first one, or maybe it was an abridged version or something. But I swear there was.
I felt like she testified too, but maybe this is Mandela effect, or maybe this is just
That's blowing my mind. I swear to God, they brought her in for that. Because all right, so it was something like. I don't know if I was like watching a Siskel and Ebert or something. I don't know why I was seeing the clip back when I was, young in the 80s. Wherever I was seeing it out of context of the movie, I swear they brought her in to do that too. And I don't know if there was something especially offensive that she said that they was like, let's just edit this out, or maybe they only have a bridge version.
Listed in the full cast.
Yeah. That's blowing my mind right now, though.
Speaking of breast jokes, Kitten Natividad, who also played the naked woman or nearly naked woman in the original, is the one who wears the moral majority T-shirt in this one. So there you go. But yeah, I thought so too, Keith. And I made a note at the end about the Ebonics. I'm using quotation marks.
Yeah.
When I watched the first one a couple weeks ago, I thought, wow, this really bothers me now. I always thought this was really funny. And when she and the two guys get into it, and some of the stuff they say is funny on a non-racial level. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No,
and this one I watched, and I'm like, I understand what he's saying. I mean, even without the subtitles. So it's like, I feel like, I don't know what I'm saying. Hey, I listened to 3 rap albums, so I know what some of this lingo is.
No, the first one, I think they did a better job of making it more intentionally obscure or more intentionally opaque. This one, or the second one, felt a little sloppy, or they're just kind of throwing in some. It was much easier to follow without the subtitles anyway. And also, I understand what you're saying for the first thing. I agree that it's structurally it is a funny idea.
Yeah.
It's just that stereotypes and stuff like that. I get it. It's just
I get where because like I said, I hadn't felt that way before, and this time I was like, ooh, no, I don't think I like this anymore.
If they made an Airplane 3 today, I think they need to have Deanna Troi drive it while it crashes.
Oh my God! Wow.
Speaking of things that I had to go over my head, like how do I feel about this? One is the Iranians getting out of the van, and at first I was like, oh, this is racist. Then I was like, well, actually they still had the hostages, so you know what, I'm going to give them that. Or this was just after the hostages, I should say. Right. It was 82, so they were back. But the other one is there's a poster, there's an advertisement on the wall behind, I think it's in the airport before they leave, that says Air Pakistan, and then it says stops New York City, and then 2 others, and it's essentially a plane just crashing into people. And
oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, oh snap! That is very that's ahead of its time. Yeah, prescient. That's
comedies should be edgy.
Yeah. I then that one I was like, oh, that's really on the money. And then the Iranian one, I was like, oh, I don't like this. And I was like, no, it's at that time that's commenting on the thing. If it was in a movie now, then if it was these are Iranians, then I would be upset now, I think.
Yeah.
Let's Photoshop that poster to show that it is a plane crashing into the Twin Towers and then circulate it online. A lot of people believe that was in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, on the subject of racism, especially when it comes to world events, foreign countries, et cetera, it's just not that I can give you like a definition or here's what's okay, what's not okay. But I mean, I think there's a big difference between referring to something very specific that has happened, a specific person, a specific country that really did this one thing, as opposed to just making some kind of melange of turbans and here's this, some guy who looks like a
terrorist, as opposed to these guys actually are terrorists, and we're showing you.
This event happened, and
Oh, one other guy I forgot. You mentioned the court scene. Raymond Burr's the judge. Perry Mason himself. So that's another guy.
Oh man, yeah.
And he was in the original Godzilla as well, which doesn't really come into play in the movie, other than a couple. Speaking of racist bits, the Japanese things go straight to Godzilla. I laugh at the Godzilla. That anytime I see Godzilla or somebody in a bad Godzilla costume, I laugh. But that part's But Raymond Burr was in the original Godzilla, so. There's a team of people coming in with like futuristic travel bags at the beginning. Yeah. And they all say TRX, which I felt like was a THX reference.
Could have been. I didn't. I couldn't.
Lucas reference, I should say.
I thought it was. I guess I didn't catch the actual acronym on them. I thought it said something else, but that does make sense.
Speaking of being prescient, this is 82. Reagan's been in office for almost 2 years, and they already have a joke about him being mentally ill, which, 6 years later, we were all pretty sure.
In the first movie, which would have been filmed before he became president, they make a joke about a bad Ronald Reagan movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he was...
God, I didn't...
that was right before, he got elected. Yeah,
I didn't realize that. I guess I pictured both of these movies happening considerably later. I think because of the way some of the jokes were playing, I was like, what?
Fortunately, we won't have another mentally ill president, so we're good there. I had to do it.
There's another Reagan joke later, which really I was like, that is smart. That is, I mean, it took me a couple of seconds that they did that thing, that little swerve they were doing. It's like the trademark swerve of the series, really, but it really just like made me almost do like a double take, or the mental equivalent of a double take.
I like the scene at the Reagan home for the mentally ill. Speaking of other veteran actors, John Vernon, Dean Wormer from Animal House. And that whole scene is a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of takeoff, which I didn't get that from the original movie, but this, the original mentally ill place, I didn't get that. But in this one, it's very much a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest thing, which was cool. I enjoy seeing the Love Boat guy, Jack Jones, singing. That's always a good one. I like that bit.
I knew as soon as we saw the Searching Spotlights, I'm like, somebody's going to sing, but I expected it to be Robert Hayes. So it's nice to see somebody else.
We already talked about there's a lot of 2001 references, a lot of AI.
Many.
Ultimate computer kind of things. Speaking of Star Trek, so Louise Sorel has a one-line part. And she's the robot or android from Requiem for Methuselah. So she has one line as the nurse. I'm like, is that Louise Sorel? I think it is, and it was. So
how many Seinfeld actors in Airplane?
I didn't notice any. I was paying attention. I was trying, but
feels like there had to be somebody, like an older actor, that would show up or something.
I'm sure there
probably. I did not research to see what Star Trek or Seinfeld actors. I should have.
That reminded me of thinking about that and watching the first one. Although it's probably more the second one that goes with this comment. But I remember thinking to myself, all the kids in these movies are probably about my age now, which is kind of blow my mind too.
Yeah, that's true. The kid in this was the kid who was in Poltergeist. I love the bit at the beginning. We can just go through all the bits, but we're not going. We only have an hour. I
didn't write down notes on any of the bits just because that would have been a whole podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That just reminded me of the guy shooting the dog at the airport.
Yeah,
and then the dog jumps back up. It's so stupid. It's just out of nowhere. And Jimmy, you mentioned Robert Hayes being like, I don't want to do a third one.
Yeah.
Great. But he really didn't do a lot more after that. He was in he
didn't want to be pigeonholed.
Yeah.
But now he said he regrets not doing a third one.
He should have been. He could have been that. I mean, his perturbed look, or I wrote down perturbed. I couldn't find a better verb for it, but kind of Jack Benny look, if you will. It's just so good. It's just perfect.
He just I was gonna say I don't know. I really like him. I really like his delivery. He really held it down and made that character work and made it likable.
It always amazes me looking back because he didn't. But yeah, maybe he shot himself in the foot.
What I appreciate about all the comedy actors in this movie that occurred to me as I was watching is none of them crack a smile. They are all straight men in the movie, basically.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Except for maybe the one guy in the air controller tower that's always like saying goofy things.
Right.
Oh, Steven Stucker, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, everybody's the straight man.
Yeah.
And you never ever see that, I feel like. So that really makes this movie work for me on a different level.
I was going, damn it. As I said, that's like one of the things I was holding on to. I thought of it back when Stephen was talking about the at the time, the big names, these guys from drama that were doing these things. It's even, and perhaps especially William Shatner for this, at least from my perspective, what he'd been doing up to that point, or what I'd seen him in up to that point. It was amazing because of the way they all had that delivery. Mm-hmm. It was something. There's expert comedy timing with the way that they were delivering everything, and also having that stone serious straightness just made everything work so well.
Well, Shatner proved his comedy chops years later in Boston Legal, which I contend is a highlight of his career, second only to like Wrath of Khan. It's just that was his comedy zenith, in my opinion.
Just a side note, I'm going way back to when we mentioned Steven Stucker. And he does double duty here as a stenographer also, but he passed away in '86. He was diagnosed with AIDS in '84 and passed away in '86. But he's one of my favorite things in both movies, and I think it is the fact that he's the one guy who's like, I know the jokes, I'm in on it, and I'm telling you what the jokes are. We're gonna do this.
I'm in a movie.
Yeah, and I think when I first saw it, I was like, what is the deal with this guy? And then every time since, I'm like, no, I love this guy. And you just want him to keep showing up. And
I mean, this is what he's best known for, these two films, but also Trading Places, the Kentucky Fried Movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing on Robert Hayes. So I think the one other thing he did was it was some kind of time series where he had a watch and he could stop time. And Pam Dauber, Mork and Mindy, another sci-fi series, kinda was in that. But that's the only other thing I remember him doing.
Huh. That sounds interesting.
Steven Strucker's turn as the stenographer was in Kentucky Fried Movie, not an Airplane.
I
was going to say.
I thought it was him in this one too, though. I thought he did.
No, I didn't remember that. And then when I look on his Wikipedia page, it says he played the control room worker at Airplane and the stenographer in Kentucky Fried.
Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense because he was in both movies as the same character.
From, he was from Iowa, but his family moved to Shaker Heights, Ohio. That's where he graduated high school.
Oh, interesting.
Julie Haggerty in both movies, great, of course. It's just something about the way they did her character in the second movie made her just much more frustrating to me. Just as the a little too much of the doubting the main hero thing.
The first movie, it felt like she got stronger bits where she wasn't just playing the woman, she was playing like an equal character.
Yes.
The second movie, they went ahead and made her like a computer engineer, which seems like a step up, but then you're right. They treated her character like the sidekick woman.
Or the whatever that one of those tropes they do with the disagreeing spouse or something, or the whole there to hold you back thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt like she was there just to justify the Chad Everett thing, which was fine. It was a okay bit, but yeah, she did. You're right. It didn't make it whole enough, and she's a great comedic actress.
Right. But yeah, the point being is I wouldn't blame her for it. It's certain just the way the character was written this time. Just didn't really. Yeah,
and she's gone on to have a great career. She was in my favorite movie of last year, Marriage Story.
Marriage Story, yeah.
And her when she takes out the bobby pin or whatever. That I mean, her hair is amazing in the first one, but that's just stunning.
Mm-hmm.
And from one hair person to another, that's pretty amazing. While we're there, the shaving guy, the guy who gets up to shave at the end. Every time I go in an airplane bathroom, I think of that guy every single time. I think of the guy shaving as the plane is about, or the shuttle is about to crash.
That was my least favorite part of the movie.
I don't like watching it, but I think of it every time.
Oh, yeah, it's funny you should say that because I really did feel that it's weird. My pain reflex or whatever when you're seeing gore spots in movies. It comes and goes, but every now and then there's something that just gets a little too real, a little too straight, or something about that just made me a little pit in my stomach go, with them getting the shaving cuts.
I thought he was just going to slit his throat. It was a quick off, and I would have been fine with that. It was the going back to it that bothered me.
Yeah, it does make me laugh when he gets off the plane and he has all the pieces of toilet paper on his face. But yeah, that's hard to watch. I think the rest of my notes are actually all Trek related for the most part. Speaking of people that I don't even know if she had a line, but Shatner's ex-wife, Marcy Lafferty, has an appearance in the movie.
I didn't even know he had an ex-wife.
Several.
Yeah, she was also in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Is she the one that didn't die?
Yes, because I thought she was the one that died, and I looked it up, and she's still with us. So Marcy, if you're still with us, let us know.
Wait, so who was she in the movie?
It was like first person in line or something like that. So I don't even know if she had a line. She probably had a line, but I couldn't tell you which one.
I don't know. I'm Googling and I'm not finding any pictures, but I know you're right.
I saw her in the credits. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. And then I read, and this appealed to me because I did this show a couple years ago with Nikki Smith, Love Letters. Shatner and Marcy Lafferty did that show together.
Oh, did they?
I
like the Trek doors at the.
Oh my God!
They did that.
That was so just little bits like that. That whole they just had so many things going on in that space station.
That and the blinking. When Shatner starts having the meltdown about the blinking and the whine, the beeping and the flashing and that was great. The guy who says, "Yeah, we have these red lights going back and forth, but we don't know what they're for." That's a thing that ended up either was used or ended up getting used on the Police Squad series. He was the scientist I think he was the scientist every episode who was like, "Yeah, we don't know what this does. Oh, but here, let me show you this thing." And then he showed him the actual thing he was going to give him. I I'm pretty sure that was the guy. The two supporting actors are really good character actors. They're Richard Gilliland, who did a lot of sitcoms and comedy bits in the 70s, 80s. His other first mate, Sandahl Bergman, who you guys might remember from Conan the Barbarian. Yeah. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention for Shatner's Grade 82, he also had T.J. Hooker going on, so it was a banner year for him. And I wrote down, airplane can't be duplicated, ... but it can. And this was not the proof of that, but obviously Naked Gun came later, and we've had
I kept thinking Top Secret. You ever remember that one?
Yeah, that's one I've seen. I've never seen the whole thing, but that's another one.
Oh my God! Yeah,
I think the genre.
That might have been one of the ones I saw in the theater by then, when those were coming out. And I saw the Naked Guns, at least the first couple in the theater, I believe. And those were I think those were my airplanes, if any, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah, and I think that was all three of these guys. You had Zucker, Abrams, Zucker, and everything. So
fashion. I don't have any notes. I just thought we should.
Yeah, it's fine.
I just thought of something else that didn't age well for me, but again, structurally, it is a funny thing to do. But just the hysterical woman bit with the shaking her and slapping her. The slap, I was like, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yep.
I get why it's funny, but it's kind of.
If it wasn't a trope, I wouldn't laugh at it, but I still laugh at it. But
yeah,
and they overdid it so much to make it laughable.
And then they double down because they do the bit with the girl who's like, I've never been with somebody before. And then
I like that one.
That one's just filthy. It's just dirty. But and I can't remember that girl's name, but she did a lot of late 70s, early 80s sitcom work.
I think I saw Steven in line in that scene.
You might not be wrong.
Oh God.
Alternate movie?
Airplane 3.
Airplane 3 under the water.
Huh. What would they have done? I mean,
undersea.
That was actually it, or just?
No, that's what I would have done if I was trying to figure it out.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
you did air and space. Let's do ocean.
Space was, as I said, it was a surprising move for me because it was just so soon. Like, I mean, that feels like a third or fourth movie almost.
Yeah. Well, I think that's spoken like a studio that wasn't sure they were doing a third.
Yeah. Did you guys see Pat Sajak in there also?
No,
I saw him in the credits. He said he was one of the anchormen, but I didn't. He
was one of the newsmen. Yeah,
it didn't register at the time.
Yeah, this is before he got on Wheel of Fortune, and before he was probably a right wing creep then. We just didn't know it.
Oh God, have we talked about what he's? I don't know. Oh no,
sorry,
I didn't know.
He is. He and Chuck Woolery. You host Wheel of Fortune, you have to be a right wing creep. Oh man, our chances are shot.
Crush of the movie.
I got. Can I pick Julie Haggerty?
I was about to say, does it disqualify?
I mean, I feel like I have to pick Julie Haggerty. So.
Yeah, she is. She's one of my favorites. She's just great.
Agreed. Ranking. How does this movie rank with? I don't know.
The other airplane.
I don't feel like we can rank it. Well, we already said it's lesser than Airplane.
Yeah.
I don't think we can rank it with Star Trek movies because it's just so different.
Mm-hmm.
Is it funnier than Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home?
Well, I think so. I mean, it's
probably.
It kind of have to be.
I think it's funnier, but I like Voyage Home better.
Voyage Home probably has a higher jokes landing percentage.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, there aren't really jokes. It's just
right.
Bits,
There's great jokes in Voyage Home.
Yeah,
that's where Shatner proved he could do comedy. Although that wouldn't have happened yet. So, okay. Well, next time we are going to talk about Shatner's Twilight Zone episode where he's in the airplane. Theme. You see a theme going on here?
It's together.
That one is for Patreon donors only. So go to patreon.com/IABD.
Oh, there you go.
Hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have already reached the goal we're pushing for right now, but we're getting donors. So get on over there.
There you go. Get on. It's never too late. It's never too late.
There is exclusive content almost every single week on there. There's tons of stuff. So patreon.com/IABD. Your only place to get some exclusive It's All Been Trek episodes, at least one a season.
Yeah, and suggest. Oh, and we always say suggest some more special episodes for us. I mean, we did Freaky Friday because I suggested.
True. We what was the link in that list now that is probably more relevant than Freaky Friday?
What was the Freaky Friday link now? I don't.
It was Turnabout Intruder. It ripped off Turnabout Intruder, the last episode of the original series.
Yeah.
I don't know if oh my God.
It's almost the same exact effect when it happens, and yeah.
I guess I didn't really even question it at the time. I don't know why I didn't. I was just like, oh, okay. Freaky Friday. Huh.
Well, until then, live long and prosper, and don't get on an airplane.
Ever.
Never.
Well, I guess now it's unsafe for different reasons. Oh God, that could no.
By the time this episode comes out, the virus is over.
That's right. We'll be flying on planes all the time. I'll probably listen to this on a plane.
Probably not.
My own private plane. Yeah.
That reminds me something that Shatner was saying. I think there was a part where he started sounding like Trump. Hopefully, we've already stopped recording by now, anyway. So.
I mean, it's still recording, but I can edit that out. Unless I won't.
No.
I'm gonna just edit it to say Keith, so you hear Keith say, "I love Trump," and that's how we'll end it. Hey Keith, will you please say, "I don't love Trump"? But like put a space around the "don't" on either side.
Nope, can't do it. Of course, you just did it yourself, so now we can do it to you.
Yeah, go ahead. It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?